the Evolution Security Podcast. Well, this is a super stressed Aaron Davis, and hopefully my twin brother Eric is not as stressed as I am today. How was your day today, bro?
It was kind of quiet. It was a long weekend. The units had a Donza, and I guess I'm assuming it was for St. Patrick's Day. Sometimes they're pretty liberal, trying to let the soldiers get off a little bit more when they can. So, yeah, so it was kind of a slow day for me, just catching up on a bunch of admin stuff.
You talking about being a lazy government worker?
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's me. Just like, but and that comes off the tail end.
I know.
I'm just, man, I'm glad that part of, I won't go into details about this particular project, but it was 9 weeks of long hours. It kept me out of jiu-jitsu a lot of the time, and to include mornings. And man, I was definitely stressed on my feet all day, causing this old back to tense up. And so I'm glad that crap's over. So, but yeah, I had a good day, man.
Good. I'm just razzing. I did accounting for literally 12 straight hours and had a big team building meeting that wasted, 80% of my day. Then I was rushing to get some stuff done right before we came here. Eric, you can attest. We just sat down here moments ago.
Oh, yeah.
to
use your term, to play a little jazz.
Yeah, we are going to play some jazz this time because, we've been chomping at the bit to talk about some stuff you and I have been wanting to talk about. We haven't been able to, but, that's for a good reason. We've had some crazy awesome guests. That last episode with Jason Beeler, man, that was one of the funnest things I've ever got to do.
Yeah, I mean, I compare it to the Tim Alexander show for me. So absolutely, I was really pumped about it for you, and then I had a blast too because, as we said on the air, Jason Beeler is a huge influence on both of us, and really good memories from being in high school and then right out of high school and college, listening to Saigon Kick. So yeah, and then his latest stuff is really good. So.
Oh man, I'm stoked about his new music. And by the way, that tune in the opener was called "Bring All Your Dead," which is off of another one of his Baron von Belsky Orchestra albums. And the fact that we're able to use some of his music on the show is just a blast. What a cool guy. And maybe one of these days we'll get to do some training, offer him some training someday. That'll be a blast. But
oh yeah, and he's just just north of me. So yeah, that might be easy to get that to happen. So
well, yeah. So audience members out there, we love music. Eric and I play most of the music on this show, but you know what? We're gonna take the opportunity to play some killer music by Mr. Jason Beeler, formerly of Saigon Kick, when he's one of my favorite musicians, and we've got all this great music to throw on here. I'm going to do it. So, well, Eric, let's just jam like we said we would. And I guess first off, this is the first you're going to hear about this. this is not movie magic. This is legit. I'm just telling you about this right now. So I got a call from. I digressed a little bit. We've talked a little bit about me needing to have surgery on my neck. Have we talked about that on the air?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, we
recall.
have.
So today, during that ridiculous meeting, I got a call from my surgeon, um, a, a surgeon that is in Texas. That my wife, he did the surgery on my wife's back. She searched for him by Googling jujitsu after back surgery. And she found this doctor. His
Cool.
name is Dr. Ziegler out of Tulsa, Texas Back Institute. They called me and said that my insurance company or plan approved the optimum surgery for me, which my surgeon said that they would most likely fight it, and that they would because so what I'm going to have. So long story short, I've got 3 really bad discs. When he came in after looking at my stuff, he goes, "Well, you've got 3 discs that are basically shot." Just and I've known they've been pretty bad for a while, but so I'm not going to get into the between this and between that, but let's just say my C5, 6, and 7 are all really bad. My C6 is so bad that it has to be fused. They can't do a disc replacement, but my C5 and 7, I'm going to have synthetic discs placed in there, and it's the optimum surgery for me. It'll be less of a problem, it'll be less of an intense recovery, which is already going to be a crazy recovery because it's a pretty invasive surgery. But I'll have way more mobility, and the fact that he was saying that, of course, normally insurance companies they'll barely approve 3 levels of fixing your spine anyway. But so for them to approve what's called a hybrid surgery, which is what I'm having, is man, just to be frank, is all God.
Yeah, I was going to
It's
say, man, God's looking after you in that sense for your insurance. Because, man, if insurance doesn't pay for surgeries like that, man, I'm sometimes baffled at how much it cost. So
well,
yeah, that's great news.
he was saying that they would probably only want to pay for a triple fusion. And dude, in this day and age, he explained, that was really the only option, a while ago, and you just knew that's what it was going to be, and it was a slam dunk. You didn't even think about it. You just had that surgery done. But now with the disc replacements, and actually he's one of the pioneers of those those synthetic discs, and actually known as one of the best orthopedics in the country. So I'm glad to be in his hands. So
That's
long story
awesome.
short, I am having surgery in the middle of May, and I'm glad because, again, Eric, it's affected my guitar playing, it's affected my shooting. I've lost about 75% of the strength in my right arm, and I've noticed that it's really starting to affect me in my left arm too. But I'm ready to be unleashed again and be unleashed on my home gym. So, but it's going to be a few months. I think
Awesome, man. I'm
the
glad for
recovery
you.
the recovery will take about 3 months. So, hopefully, I'm going to be able to do some of the stuff I love to do. At least play some guitar and do a little bit of light dry fire and stuff like that.
Yeah, just like everybody always says, our mentors is just do what you can.
Mm-hmm.
You'll figure out a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, and
You
then,
know,
man, just be able to do jits without walking out of there with my fingers and hands all numb and sore neck and etc. Okay, I'm feeling like I'm going a little bit too long on this surgery thing, but
no,
that's
no,
some
that's
news
great
there.
news, man.
I was real stoked. Long story short, about the fact that they approved that, it's only been like they said it was going to be a while, and they were wanting me to have surgery in 2 weeks. Like,
Oh wow.
no, I can't do that. But
Well, well, that's great news, Aaron. Speaking of great news, on the Second Amendment front, just yesterday, um, Judge Reed O'Connor in the Northern District of Texas, U.S. District Judge, he issued a preliminary injunction for Polymer 80, right? For the frames and receivers rule. Let's just call it law written
mhm.
by the executive branch, right? Um, and he slammed the ATF, essentially saying that they had no legal authority to change the definition of what was clearly outlined in plain text in the Gun Control Act. So, man, that's huge. And we know the ATF doesn't have that authority, and we're not going to get too far down the rabbit hole of hyperbole, but the executive branch essentially writing rules that can put people in jail and eliminate businesses, swaths of the industry, when they had said they were perfectly fine. They weren't a firearm in the past, but all of a sudden, um, Joe Biden says he wants it done,
Yeah,
and
that's you got to put a fine point on that. That so the polymer, the 80% lowers, and then the pistol braces, they were just fine legal for, let's just say, the last 8-9 years, right? I'm just throwing a time frame out there that they've
well,
been
and the pistol braces have been essentially defined legal by the ATF since 2012. I'm
okay.
not sure about
So,
but that's just one example, Aaron. I'm
but
not sure
in
about the
other
frames and
words,
receivers.
they've been legal for a long time, quote legal, right? You hate to
Yep.
even use those words, but they've been okay by the ATF until now. Then they just changed their minds. That's a big deal to pull that crap. But
Well, of course, it's not completely over,
uh,
but it was, it was enjoined. And by the way, he also said that both polymer 80 is protected from that rule, and polymer 80's customers and companies like polymer 80,
oh
said
man,
specifically. So
go
essentially any
Texas judges, man, rock on.
yeah, yeah, just holding up liberty and the plain text and tradition, right?
Hmm.
From Bruin, because let's face it, he also quoted portions of Bruin. Bruin's really helped us, Second Amendment wise. So what
Oh man,
what this is,
we continue to be under attack, but at the same time, boy, there has been lots of cases and lots of decisions being remanded back down the line to the lower courts, saying, "Okay, you've got another Supreme Court ruling that you get to bounce this off of." So,
well, and to me, Aaron, this feigns what's going to take place with the pistol brace
mhm,
rule as well.
yeah,
You would think so, because
yeah,
it's essentially the same type of writing laws from the executive branch, which Article 1 doesn't authorize that. So, or excuse me, more to the point, Article 1 dictates that, it's Congress's job to write law, and Article 2 of the Constitution does not allow or does not authorize the executive branch to write law. Congress does that. So,
yeah.
yeah, that's great news. I was pretty pumped to hear that today.
Well, I think we'll just keep moving along here. I've posted about this on social media a little bit, but I know I've talked about this pistol a little bit, but I finally got it put together a couple weeks ago. So this is a Gen 319 that my father-in-law had in his closet, 0 shots through it. Now it's had quite a few through it.
I bet.
But over the last several months, I had been putting this together, waiting on an optic to be available for it, and then of course the fun part. So I've wanted a custom, or it's their duty series, but I've wanted some framework done by Ben and Boresight Solutions for a long time, since the first time I handled Craig Douglas's one of his bore sights that he brought to a couple of ECQCs ago in Washington that we hosted.
Well, Aaron, I think Craig's terminology was you finger banged it, right?
Hey, it was in my mind. I just didn't say it because it's a little PG-13. But
Well, I mean, I wasn't insinuating anything, but
yeah, the technical term is finger banging. Okay. So but yeah, after finger banging Craig's pistol, I believe it was a 17 that was chopped to a 19 grip.
and that is Craig Douglas,
Yes, Craig
correct?
Douglas.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Did I say Craig? I'm sorry.
No, that's
Craig's.
okay.
Yeah, meant to say his whole name. But okay, so yeah, the main work here is the frame. That is a duty series. The rough texture, which I don't think you want anything else on this because it's not that rough. But Eric, you can see that
The Razorback.
the Razorback, dude. That's a must if you have them do some work, because they're relieving some grip just a little bit, and then Glocks still feel great to me, but this kind of just fits even in your palm just a little bit nicer. So I won't talk about this too much, but
No, I love
the
hearing about it. Here in a few days, I think I'm gonna get to handle it myself.
yeah, you get to
I'm looking
finger
forward
bang
to
it here this weekend.
at TACCon 23.
Oh yeah, man, we got a kick ass week coming up here. But so the main aspects of it, it's got of course the Boresight Solutions frame. That took a while to get in because they've got a lot of work going through their shop. So I was so stoked when this came in. This is, man, if you ask me, the best carry optic. Now we're not talking about big competition optics or whatever, but for a carry optic, this Holosun EPS, this is the red multi reticle one. This is a game changer. This small of a closed emitter and how low it sits.
Yeah, it looks like it. Looks like it sits
In
real low.
testament to how low it sits, these are Ameriglow. I kind of special ordered, put together a little, I guess, semi-custom order of Ameriglow sights. This sight is only 0.2 hundredths of an inch, excuse me, 200ths of an inch taller than a standard Glock sight. So that's 0.18 inches, and then the rear is 0.192. So that's a perfect level of backup sights for me. And by the way, even with my bionic eyes that don't see very well within 3 feet, I was running these irons the other day quite well when I was practicing. I just wanted to see how well I could run them. And then, so yeah, some Ameriglow sights on there, and then the Overwatch tack trigger, and it's got that ghost connector, Eric, that you and I both are pretty dang fond of. Essentially what that ghost
The edge, right?
the edge does is it eliminates the weird glitch in the trigger press. But what's interesting is it almost takes a Glock trigger and turns it into a rolling double action trigger. That's just kind of like a smooth, short double action trigger instead of take up wall and then a couple of squeaky walls and then a break. It's the nicest Glock trigger I've ever felt.
Yeah, I like
But
mine for certain.
yeah, I've got one in all my larger pistols. Actually, I even have one in my 48 too. So yeah, that's it. That's the pistol I've been pulling together for the last several months. It's finally together. This is my ultimate carry Glock, that is for sure. Of course, in the Velo 4. I'm telling you, uh, this I think this Velo, the way the way it works with the zero belt, I think this conceals better than any rig I've had. And you know, Eric, I have some JM Kydex holsters that I really love. I love all my Tenacor ones, but I've just testing all my rigs out. I just think it's the width of the Velo.
Oh,
And
absolutely. I was just about to say that. I've got my I just got a new Velo in from the guys Jeff Mal and his folks. Just got another one in. I needed a second Velo and just got it in. And man, I love this holster too, man.
oh yeah, I ordered this specific Velo just for this pistol too, and
Got my
in a
cleared
in a
19 as well for
17
the
length.
internet out there.
But so yeah, the Velo with the zero belt, Jeff knows what he's freaking doing, man.
Yeah.
And you know, we could call him up and ask him about that, and he'd sit there and confirm exactly what we're observing with it. Is it how he designed this and his zero belt to work with his designs, and for undercover cops and you know, quote, low vis people and your everyday carry guys out there to conceal these pistols more. Now that is one thing that people need to know. These closed emitters do have a little bit of a sharper edge to them, so you do kind of have to have something that pulls those in just a little bit further than the kind of rounded 507C that we have. Which, and it just shows you there's pluses and minuses to all these different optics. But
Well,
from a
Aaron, if I can add, because you mentioned the zero belt, I don't know. Did you see that Craig Douglas again posted
yep
the new zero?
yep
Did you see that?
yeah, it was like it
Go
was
ahead.
double thickness, I think.
Yeah, and although and I've said this on the air multiple times, and yes, just for clarity, of course, you know, Tenacor is one of our sponsors, so um, the point behind that is sometimes when folks hear us speak so highly, we always want to give the caveat that we were using Tenacor gear before Jeff started, supporting us. So um, we were saying this beforehand, but I just wanted to make that clear. But the fact is, and this brings up an interesting point, because my new range has enabled me to do a lot more, both carbine and pistol at the same time, which I haven't had that opportunity much. And I would say that, of course, the regular zero belt does fine. You know, if I'm just running one mag of each, um, an AR mag and a Glock mag, but at some point, I think running a lot more gear. Yeah, I think that thicker, and I think he's going to call it the Fat Boy. I don't. I hope I'm not wrong on that. I thought that's what I saw Craig say, but he said they're not. And we would know also if it was in production. It's not quite yet, but it soon will be.
Well, and you bring up a good point. We weren't even planning on talking about this. Like we said, we're having a jam session. The zero belt. I just Craig, excuse me. We were just talking about Craig, but he's involved, of course, with Tenacor also. But Jeff, does a lot of R&D and puts a lot of thought into every single one of those products. And the Zero Belt is specifically about carrying concealed.
Oh yeah.
It is purpose built for that. So
Super comfortable, works great, man.
when I've done some competition lately, I've actually preferred using my old foundation belt
Hmm.
for it being a little bit thicker. So maybe getting one of those thicker Zero belts would be cool too. But yeah, it's the tool, it's the proper tool. I would rather have the Zero for everyday carry and a thicker one sometimes, like especially when you start rolling the dirt, like you said, with a couple of AR mags and etc. on a belt. Zero
Yeah.
really isn't for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and neither would Jeff and Ten, of course, say that it was for it,
Mm-mm.
for all that. That's not what its intention was.
Yeah, bro. There was a holster of theirs that I wanted to get for competition. Actually, it's their outside the waistband one, and I wanted to
Their
get it for
arc, maybe.
Yeah,
Yep, I think.
and Jeff just said, "Hey, man, that holster's not designed for that's really not going to work well for a competition." He said that is a that is made for optimum concealment for an outside the waistband holster.
Man, good
So,
on Jeff. You just being honest.
mhm.
What's its purpose? Yeah, yeah,
Well,
awesome.
so, bro, that's the pistol you'll get to see here this weekend. Um, Eric, so we're going to TacCon and man, we're going to be around. Man, probably 50% of our guests will be there.
It's probably true.
and and then there'll be a handful more there that we want to get on the show. But I mean, I can't think of a I can't think of a funner weekend than to go spend 3 days with the big long list of instructors and classes, and you pick some of them, right? You gotta you gotta compromise because there's going to be classes overlapping that you want to take, but kind of having that smorgasbord of instructors and classes and topics, it's going to be a freaking blast. And
Absolutely.
hopefully we'll try, man, even if it's just sitting in front of one of our laptops, kind of give a update on how it's going when we're there. So, but Eric, so we're talking about instructors, and I wanted to tell a funny story. So I was in I was in Orlando just a few days ago. I was playing, so that one of my gigs is I play for the ORU pep band, and we were playing at the NCAA. So, that flew there on a charter jet and then flew back on a charter jet. And, there's this one gentleman, he's a super nice guy, right? But I had heard several years ago, and I forgot that he was somewhat into pistol shooting and that he said that he was an instructor. Well, so this is I'm putting this out there that you need to know, do some research on who you're getting instruction from. And if they say something that's pretty odd, it's probably wrong. So this guy is I'll tell the story like this. So this young man next to me on the flight was talking about getting his concealed weapons permit here in Oklahoma, but he just hadn't been able to yet. And he said, "Oh, well, I have it from Texas, but not here." And I said, "Well, hold on a second." So I said, "You've got constitutional carry here in Oklahoma. You don't need a permit." And then this guy that I was talking about that's an instructor said, "No, that only covers open carry."
Oh, mercy.
And
Mm-mm.
I said, "No, it- no, it's concealed carry." "No, I teach it." Um,
Go ahead. Yeah, I had a comment,
Again,
but go
dude,
ahead.
I this gentleman may listen to our show. I don't want to bag on him, but again, super nice guy. But you gotta. It was one of those situations where a lot of the times I'll keep quiet about stuff, and kept saying that is not the case. Why would you have a a constitutional carry like all the other states that have, or permitless carry? I haven't heard anywhere ever that just covers the Winnie Wagon open carry.
Nope.
And so finally, I you can't even see anything mentioning that. So I was doing, just when I got back, I was like, hey, I looked for the statute on this, but long story short, I sent him a text. I got his contact and I said, hey man, just being nice about it, hey, can you send me that statute that you're mentioning, that constitutional carry only covers open carry? I said, because I've never heard of that ever. Then he came back and said, oh, I was talking about pre 2019. It's the way you stated it now.
So he's since researched it and figured out he was wrong. But
But he's
and
been.
then go
The
ahead.
point is I don't know what he's talking about pre 2019 either.
No.
Dude,
Yeah, I don't.
constitutional carry went into effect, I believe, last year. But it was no earlier in 2020, but not pre 2019. Long story short, he's been teaching that to people.
Yeah.
He's been teaching that to people.
Yeah,
That's law. That's a big deal.
well, and what it makes me think, Aaron, is a lot of those instructors, they got paid. They got paid to teach those classes, right? I'm not sure how much they get paid because, of course, some of those fees go to. And man, it's been so long. You and I took that in Oklahoma in what
1997,
1996.
96.
Yep. And so yeah, I mean, I don't recall all the statutes then. And then again, most of the audience knows I've been away from Oklahoma, for 20 years. And so over 20 years. I go back, of course, but yeah, so that's not on the tip of my tongue anymore. But yeah, we're all of us can be wrong. That's we want to make sure that we're not saying we're without being incorrect on things. I mean, I know throughout the tenure of this show, I know we've said some things incorrectly. We typically try to correct ourselves, but we can't
We're
always be
here
perfect.
learning
Yep.
too.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, we know a lot about what we're talking about, but hey, we have the experts on, right? And we're learning
Well,
from them
remember that was. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying we're learning from the experts that we're interviewing, just like our audience. So,
Well, and I think that is the point when we started this. That's what it was about. We felt so strongly about certain individuals on this path that we've been learning from, although there's other sources to get the same information. Not very many, but I'll name American Warrior Society as one of them. Of course, those guys have been putting out. I still count those guys as the best self-defense podcast on the air. That's my opinion.
And then you got Lee Weems, who's another one.
Yeah. And now I would be remiss. So I'd be careful that I didn't, because man, Lee's show is awesome. And I'll say over the air, I haven't been seeing as many shows from Lee recently.
I've been so busy, I haven't been paying attention.
And it could be he's prepping for TACCon, or he's just took some time off.
I bet you he's going to be doing a lot of work at TACCon. I have a feeling.
Well, and not only that, Aaron, the other thing that it always brings to light is I'm sure we got guests that they they look for our podcast on a regular basis. If it's not there, so we try to keep weeklies, but it doesn't always work that way. So if anybody gets upset with us, we sometimes, our day jobs get in the way or travel gets in the way. So,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Well,
well,
Eric,
Aaron's go ahead.
I don't want to dominate this conversation, bro, but as we were, I've got my handy dandy moleskin journal here that I wrote some things down, and I actually had a question for you. So I was at my son Graham, who just turned 14 the other day. Happy birthday, son!
Happy birthday,
And
Graham.
yeah, my freaking both my boys freaking power lifters now. But he's on the junior varsity rugby team now.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so we were at his rugby game, and we're sitting there watching, and then dude, all of a sudden, I just smelled this strong um, smell of marijuana. Now
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make real clear, man. I don't care about people smoking marijuana or cannabis. I have a in the true sense, a very liberal attitude on that. I think it helps a lot of people. At least the evidence shows in a lot of ways that it helps people. So I'm not against it. But man, when you're at a rugby game and you decide to light up around a bunch of kids, around a bunch of families, and literally 50 people are looking around going, who the heck's smoking this? So, bro, I finally see who's doing it. And he's literally standing right next to my car across the street. Right. And I'm just like, man, I usually keep my mouth shut about this stuff. And I'm not trying to go over there and start a fight with the guy, but I just said, man, I'm going to say something to this guy. This is rude as heck. It's illegal. We're all watching a rugby game and we're having to deal with secondhand marijuana smoke, And so I went over there to him and I said, hey, sir, man, I don't care if you like to smoke that, but can you walk over there to smoke it to where you're not downwind from all of us? And of course, he started getting all defensive. Oh, I bet you wouldn't say this to someone smoking a cigarette. I said, well, I don't smell any cigarettes. I'm smelling this. And I'm just saying, man, walk down the way if you're going to smoke that out here at a rugby game.
Yep. Just be
And then,
courteous. Yep.
yeah. And, I was nice about it. I know well enough not to try and escalate something, but long story short, he finally threw it down on the ground and kind of started walking past me. And of course, I was keeping an eye on him and keeping distance. But Eric, it made me think about one thing that we've gone over. And this is me asking you as a more experienced knife fighter and knife defense instructor. It occurred to me, what if the guy had pulled a knife on me, right? I know I'm kind of jumping to my question here, but you as someone that understands, and I do a little bit. You've taught me quite a bit about knife defense, but it's still just so far outside my wheelhouse. In general, if someone pulls a knife on you in close distance, because we were still pretty close, I'm going to assume that you're going to tell me to deal with that knife first before I try and draw. What?
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. At that point, it is absolutely controlling that weapon bearing limb first. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. There is such a risk, that you could have that knife buried into you, to use Craig's terms, um while trying to deploy a weapon where you're not controlling that weapons bearing hand, controlling the space, to use Paul Sharp's terminology. that, yeah, man, it's a grappling problem at that point. You got to control that limb, and tie, your tie ups, or however form that it's offered to you in that particular situation. You got to control those limbs, and if needed, deploy a tool at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it because like you're saying, I mean, so be trying to draw a pistol when the guy is within 5 feet away from you. And I knew that's the way you would answer it, but at the same time, I wanted to bring this up to some of our audience members that are not familiar with dealing with knives and what they should at least have, again, to quote some of our mentors, have a parking space for this type of situation. Because you may, trying to get a hold of that knife, wielding hand, you may get stuck 2 times, but it's probably better than getting stuck 5 or 6 times as you're trying to pull your weapon out, your
Well, and
pistol out.
Aaron, and I can be a little more specific, is that, depending on how they're wielding it, most of the time, I can't say, there's a lot of people out there listening to this that are also very experienced or more experienced than myself even, is that, somebody starts an underhanded stab, which is going to be the most common. You got to control that shoulder, and then you got to start being concerned about getting a 2-on-1 form of a hold onto that. It can be the baseball grip, that Craig espouses, or it can be the modified Russian techniques that Paul espouses. But yeah, using 2-on-1 baseball bat, 2-on-1 Russian grip is in all honesty, that's got to be your focus, and getting control of that limb is what is most important at that point.
Yeah, I figured I would at least bring that up because that was a real situation that was just fine, but it did occur to me, um, as close as he passed me by, it's not like I could run and jump around him, when the situation really wasn't, I could read the situation that it wasn't the guy was frustrated with me, but
I will say this: it does. Yeah, it sounded like he was a little pissed that he'd been called out. But let's give the guy credit. You kind of gave him a correction, and he took it. He was a little pissed off, but he threw it down and walked off. He at least had some form of de-escalation himself. So
mm,
guess we can kind of give him that credit from what I hear from the situation. But good on you, Aaron. I think sometimes it is a balancing act of, you never know, when you address that with somebody, what their reaction can be.
I
you
don't know.
know
I mean, was it a good idea for me to do it? That's questionable. Um,
yeah, I agree with that, Aaron. I think that you kind of determine at that point, a person's demeanor. You're already prepared in your mind, with your managing unknown contacts. You're, you know, watching the hands, watching their behavior, any type of pre-assault cues, all that stuff. So I think in life sometimes we walk a line where sometimes, societal abnormalities, sometimes nicely asking somebody, I think that's just fine. I think you can determine, reading a person's body language in many cases, depending on, excuse me, where you're at. But yeah, Aaron, there's a dichotomy on that. I'll just put it that way.
mhm.
Whether or not it's worth possibly, but Aaron, you didn't go in there with ego puffing.
Mm-mm.
You went there nicely. I think that's the main point.
Oh, I started out by saying, "Hey, man, I don't." I don't care that you want to smoke that, hey, that's all good. But, you know, so yeah, it's nice having this journal because I've wanted to talk to you about that for a little while, actually. But I feel like I've dominated the topics here, bro. So I know you had a couple things to talk about.
Aaron, I've kind of liked the way this has flown. You know, flowed. Excuse me, flown.
Can you speak
God,
American?
I speak American. but yeah, Aaron, I think one of the things I'd really like to talk about it, and man, I'm good with this. Cutting a little bit short. The other subjects I have are not timely. Um, man, I really want to hear about Nick coming there to both Broken Arrow and Jinx and Tulsa with you guys. But just for folks on the air, by the way, I mean it's very timely. He just graduated today, reclassing as a radar operator and repairman.
Awesome.
They're in Fort Sill, so he's done with school. He's headed back here to North Carolina at Fort Lejeune. But yes, I I know what it's like to be in that environment, in a training environment. He was in the barracks. Lucky for him, he's already an NCO. He's a corporal, so they put him in his own room and in a section for active duty rather than being with the boots, as I guess the Marines call boots, the recruits just out of boot camp, and so he didn't have to deal with some of that BS. But anyway, there were some times he was lonely.
Yeah.
I have I talk with Nick all the time. You know, um, God's blessed me to have such a killer, relationship with my son. I get a little emotional thinking about it. Um, but him as he's been at school, man, I swear I might talk to him every other day. And have long, conversations with him. Some of it's him asking me advice about some of the stuff in school, even though that's not my area. It's very much radio frequency based and electronics based, and then just him just he's still comes to me for advice in many many cases because of obviously my military background. But anyway, I I got to the point where I knew he had a couple of 4-day weekends. And at first I was like, would he commit to going and seeing family, or was he just going to stick around the barracks there and kind of just be lonely? But um so our father Randy went and picked him up and brought him home to come and hang out with everybody. And I tell you, Aaron, it made his freaking month, coming
Awesome.
and seeing everybody. And I'm just curious, man, how you tell me how your visit with him went.
Man, it was great. I had not seen him since my second ECQC. And so, man, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was much smaller, you
Yes,
know.
yeah. And so, yeah, I was real glad to see him. Dad brought him home, and I took him I took him right away from mom and dad, unfortunately, because um I had I had a gig the next day. But my boys wanted to see Nick, and so we went out to dinner, had a few brewskis, and then came home and hung out. And Nick and I, the next day, we had I had I had ran out of ammo. And because I wasn't, it was kind of an impromptu thing. I only found out that he was coming here like a day or so before. And so we hunted around. I went around looking for ammo. Man, shop. I'm sorry. I just do not like about every gun shop I go into when they're freaking selling Blazer, not Blazer brass, but Blazer with aluminum um, casing for 32 cents a freaking round.
Hmm.
When now, dude, you can easily find some good brass ammo for 25 cents a round. But long story short, I just bit the bullet, no pun intended, and bought us some extra ammo so he and I could go shoot some pistols together, and we had a blast, man. And
Awesome.
I was in, but I felt. I'm going to tell a funny story though. I felt bad. I didn't take enough pictures as we were shooting because, man, I had a gig to get to at 1 p.m. Right. So unfortunately, I had to rush Nick back to mom and dad's. Let me not gloss over the fact that we had a great time shooting. Of course, being your son, he's a great shooter, and I think he was pretty stoked to shoot some rounds through a pistol, and because he hadn't been able to in a while. I don't think so. But yeah, so we had a great time at my range here in Tulsa. But then I rushed him over to mom and dad's and dropped him off, rushed home to get my gear and change my clothes, and then rushed to go. I was going to get some espresso and then ran out of time to get some espresso. I was pissed about that. Then I pull into the parking lot of my gig, and the parking lot was empty.
So you didn't need to rush. You could have
Get
spent.
this. So I've been super busy. With my accounting job, with this podcast, with training, competition, my gigs, doing stuff with my kids. Sometimes I'm not looking at my calendar too well. Bro, the game, so this was for an ORU game, the basketball game band. The game wasn't until 7 p.m. and the other guitar player was playing it.
Oh.
I felt
Just
like a goofball, and then I felt bad because I could have spent more time with Nick. So,
well, don't feel bad. I think ultimately you just a little bit overwhelmed. You know, we
bro,
get that way.
I've been doing this gig thing for 30 years, 30 or more years. And there's only been a couple of times where I've either missed, forgot about a gig and they're calling me, "Hey, Aaron, where are you?" Oh, crap. you know, but that was one of the few times I've showed up to a gig thinking I had a gig and there wasn't one. But
Excuse me.
like
Well,
I said,
I'm glad you had a good time. He got to hang out with Jennifer and Rob as well, and mom and dad, and he was just ecstatic to see everybody. So it's a blessing to me knowing that he got to come home on a long weekend that otherwise I'm telling you gets stuck in the barracks. Of course, Nick, when he's been, on the weekends, he's just spending time at the gym and stuff like that and occupying his time. But on a 4-day weekend, yeah, everybody's gone. All the other well, maybe not the Boots. I don't know if they got passes or not. Maybe they did. But nonetheless, him getting to come home and see the Davis family and whatnot. But I'll also see this. The previous 4-day or one of the weekends, I think it may have just been a weekend, his grandfather, Jana, my wife's father, went and picked him up, and he got to go hang out with them too. So,
cool.
and he got to, hang out with some very important family members to him. So awesome.
Killer.
Well, bro, man, I honestly think, man, this has been a good little jam session. I think it's good
Me,
enough to maybe start saying good night.
yeah, and just say we're gonna let's see here, in just a few short days I'll be meeting you in Dallas, Boy, it's going to be a bit. It's funny, I have to work my butt off so I can leave. you know,
Yeah.
I know you're used to getting up early, but I was working by 6:30 a.m. this morning. I'll be doing that again tomorrow and probably the next day. Hopefully, I won't have to do that on Thursday because I'm gonna have to leave work and drive to Dallas. Luckily, it's only with my sports car and my lead foot. It only take me about 3.5 hours, but
Drive careful, bro. That's
I will. I look out for speed traps.
what's Tom Givens say? He says, part of your awareness, if you got stopped by a cop with all our law enforcement brethren out there, but it's funny hearing, Tom, who's a former police officer himself, say that too.
Yeah,
But
basically, yeah, I've heard him say he's like, "Man, that's your fault. You didn't see the cop a mile ahead, or whatever
yeah,
he said."
I will say I'm not saying I drive the speed limit perfectly, but I'm definitely not known. I guess I would be more known as a grandpa driver these days. I guess if the shoe fits, I guess I am a grandpa now, but still weird every time I think about that. But well, bro, this has been fun. I think we threw out a little bit of fun topics and you know it's
We'll
just
check.
nice
We'll
hanging out
check
with you.
back in. Yeah, we'll check back in. I think we'll at least be able to get on here for 30 minutes and sit in front of my laptop or yours and just say hi to everybody and say what we've been up to. So
And yeah, Aaron, I'll see if I can knock off the dust off of my H4 because it has, reasonable mics. Works
mhm.
pretty good, and we'll see. We'll see
Okay.
how that works. We'll test it before we depend on it. It's been so long since we've depended on it, but it actually records good audio. With,
Yeah.
with those mics that are right on the top of it. I think you've probably seen it,
Oh yeah, it's a
but
stereo set of mics on the top of it. Yep.
yep. Yeah, I'll get that out and test it over the next couple of days. I'll bring it. Worst case scenario, like you said, we just jump on a laptop. I
Yep.
think for travel, this is something, we'll just say on the air. I think I think we should get some of those Audio Technica USB mics for
Yeah.
because it's you're not having to take a interface and a boom and we don't need a boom for that, but just taking just a mic and
Hmm.
that interfaces directly with the computer might be good for us to have when we travel.
It's a good idea, man. All right, bro. Well, hey, good night, and I'll
Have a good
talk
one,
to you
buddy.
here. We need to get our plans together. I'm going to start loading stuff up. I've got some ammo here for you. So,
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask you, don't forget my ammo.
oh, I got your ammo right staged already. So,
I know you wouldn't forget it, bro. I just thought I'd razz you.
all right,
All right,
bro.
bro. Love you, man.
Love you too. Talk to you later.
Bye.